welcome to another used car heaven here on Men and Motors. Well, it's a special programme this week, but we've got all the regular features too. Simon, the car doctor, is back in the surgery, and Brad will have more insider tips at the trading post. But this week, we've come to a deserted airstrip, along with 3 track day cars to try them out for this week's lucky viewer, who we'll meet very soon. The first of those cars is this. It's the Caterham Super Light 7. Doesn't that look absolutely fantastic? That's car number 1. The second car is the Ariel Atom, a radical and very specialised car. That's great too. And car number 3 is the MKGT, a real race car if ever there was one. But let's meet this week's lucky viewer. And it's Mark Hoskin, who is 31 and a fireman in London. Mark lives in Milton Keynes and is in his first year of car racing. Before that, he raced bikes for 6 years. But he's currently leading the scholarship class in the Formula Honda Championship. Mark's now looking for a car that he can use on track days too, and has a budget of around £15,000 to spend. Well, Mark, we've set up 3 really interesting track day cars for you today. Come to a runway, disused, where we can have a bit of fun, hopefully. First of these cars to take a look at is this, the Caterham 7. Something that's been around a long time. It's got a lot of heritage around the Caterham name, but it's got quite an old-fashioned look to it, this car, isn't it?
I've heard they're a really good car to drive, but it does look like it's been around a long time.
So are you not keen on it straight off? Do the looks put you off somewhat?
It doesn't look great. It doesn't look as racy as perhaps would be nice, but at the end of the day, I want a car that's going to drive well more than look the part.
But it holds its value well, this car.
Yeah, I've heard that as well.
Second car is this, the futuristic-looking Ariel Atom. I mean, it's radical, isn't it? There's no other word for it.
I think it looks fantastic, yeah.
It does, doesn't it?
It really looks the part. It looks like it's going to go fast and do the job that I want anyway.
And I suppose the fact that it's very open, you can see everything. You can see, you know, a lot of the working parts in there too.
Yeah, I think the downside is that I'll probably be a little bit exposed in the rain with it, but...
Yeah, obviously it is a road-going car and it's legal for that, but you'd want to pick the right day to take it out on the road, wouldn't
Absolutely,
you?
yeah.
But I love it. I think it looks fantastic.
I'm really looking forward to getting in that one and having a drive.
And the third car is this, the MKGT. Now, this looks the most, sort of, the car that would look best on a racetrack, doesn't it?
This, looking at the 3, this looks like the one that's going to be the one that does the job. Whether it actually performs or not, it's going to need to be driven for that.
Absolutely. And the difference with this car is this has got a motorbike engine in, rather than the other 2 have got conventional car engines in.
Yeah, I think that's where it's going to compare well to the race car that I drive.
I think this could be quite fun.
Absolutely.
Looking forward to taking this one out. Well, before that, let's find out more information about the MKGT.
This is a new GT1 car. It's designed for road and track use. It's got a motorcycle engine in, 900cc, 130 horsepower, weighs about 480 kilograms. It's quite a quick car. The cost involved for the kit from us is about £5,000. For a fully built one from us, it's about 10.
Well, Mark, this is the MKGT. There's no doubt that this is a very raw racing car, is it?
Yeah, it's very, very responsive. It's got a great engine. Feeling the steering could do with speeding up a little bit. It's nice to check out the handling of the car, but the engine's great. It feels quite light.
Well, although that motorbike engine doesn't kick out huge amounts of power compared to modern day cars, it's because this car is very light that makes it so fast.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it feels a really light chassis. It's quite manoeuvrable, but the engine's got loads of grunt. I think with a heavy car, yeah, it would struggle, but with something like this, perfect.
The sound is absolutely fantastic, isn't it?
It is absolutely exhilarating, isn't it?
I mean, I've driven the Westfield Mega Booster before, and I find that really hard work. I had a quick try this before, and I thought it was really easy to drive. I mean, the clutch is not too sharp. It's easy to get a hold of straight off, really.
It's easy to jump in, and yeah.
You just go, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's acceleration's brilliant.
I mean, the one thing that has to be said about this car so far is that it's very much a prototype at this stage, but it is going to go into production.
Yeah.
I mean, I think for the money, £5 as kit for or 10 grand fully built, it's superb value, isn't it?
It is. I don't know how much work it'd be to put together yourself, but
I mean, you've got to know what you're doing, obviously.
Yeah.
When you come around one of these corners, you can get the tail out a little bit, but it doesn't feel as if it's going to snap out of control at all, does it?
No, and you can make it work for you to get the car to oversteer on the chicanes quite easily. I'll show you if you like.
Well, Mark, that's the MKGT. As I was saying before, it's very much at this stage a prototype, but there's a lot of potential now with that car, isn't there?
It's great. It's really nice to drive. It's fast, it's powerful, it brakes well, it turns well. There's a few things with it. The pedals are in the wrong place, the seat's uncomfortable, the gear change is a little bit in the wrong place.
Things that could be changed and adapted, though.
Things that can just be adjusted there, yeah.
The great thing about the car is it already looks a race car as it is, and there's no doubt on a circuit it would go tremendously well, wouldn't it?
I think it would, yeah. I mean, it's not an easy car to drive fast because it has a lot of power, but it's got the grip as well. Yeah, it's definitely a similar kind of thing to the car that I race.
And great value for money.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean,
so that's a real contender at the moment, is it?
Yes.
Well, you get a chance to drive the Atom soon and the Caterham 7, but before that, let's head off to the surgery. Here's the car doctor.
Today we're looking at Mark III Fiestas, and in particular a steering problem, because all Mark III Fiestas suffer from this. And what it is that as you're driving down the road, the steering becomes quite sort of notchy and you get an odd clunk out of the steering as well. But the problem itself is quite simple to repair, and it can be prevented in that behind the engine down here there's a steering joint that seizes up with age, and before it gets to seizing up, you can sort of lubricate it with an oil can, which can prolong the life. But just to let you know, the part itself is only about £10 to £15 plus labour to repair it. Because the reason I'm telling you this is some people have fallen for the 3-card trick where they get sold a steering rack as well. And the steering rack is not the part that has failed in this case. So if you can, make sure you're not getting your leg pulled and you're only getting the steering joint replaced, and that way you should keep your cheap Fiesta motoring costs still down at ground level where they were intended to be.
Ariel itself has been going, well, over 100 years. It was founded in 1898. Probably best known for motorcycles, the Ariel Square 4, but they did actually make cars the early part of the last century. So they've got a history of all kinds of vehicles. We've been making this car for about 2 years now. We actually started with a clean sheet of paper, so we didn't know what we were going to do when we started, but we've tried to combine visual interest as well as obviously structural integrity for the chassis. So one reason, you know, you can see the chassis. I used to design motorbikes, so some people say they can see bits of Ducati and things like that in it.
The world of great beats.
Right, Mark, the second car to try out is this, the Ariel Atom. Now, there's no doubt that this looks the most wacky and futuristic car of the three. How does it feel to drive?
It feels really good actually. One thing I've noticed as soon as I've got in here and I'm driving it, is if you want to learn how a car's working when it's handling, you can see what it's doing.
You can, because everything's open. You can see the steering, you can see all the shock absorbers, everything in this car. Back there is a Rover K-Series engine, 1.8. Standard form produces about 120 brake, but they can tune it depending on how much you'll pay them to produce anywhere getting towards 300 brake horsepower, which would sound pretty devastating in a car like this.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels really light. It feels like it's got a lot of grip as well.
So how does upwards of 17 grand or so sound like to pay for this particular car?
It seems like a lot of money. There's not a lot to the car really. And unfortunately it's obvious because you can see what the car involves. It's a frame, wheels, steering and an engine. If it works well, maybe it'll be worth the money. It certainly looks good. Got some crunch as well, isn't it?
Yes, isn't it? Yeah. got a great sound to it. I mean, I know, obviously it's very open and the engine's right behind us, so obviously you're going to hear it, but it has got a nice grunt to it.
Yeah, it's the intakes we can hear.
Yeah.
When you put the foot to the throttle and the intake's open, it's sucking the air in. It's right next to your ear, it's quite good.
Well, Mark, that's the Ariel Atom. Does this car drive as well as it looks, do you think?
I love this car. It feels great to drive. Handles really well. The brakes are good. Yeah, it's great.
Wonderful Rover K-Series engine behind as well. Sounds fantastic.
Yeah, surprising amount of power and a nice noise from the intakes.
What about on the track, though? Do you think this car would do the job that you want it to do on the track?
This would work very well as a track day car, without a doubt. I'm not convinced it compares to my race car as much as I'd like it to.
But cruising around town, it also looks great as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, if that's what I wanted it for, this would be the car.
17 grand?
Worth every penny.
Worth every penny.
Yeah,
well, listen, you get a chance to drive the Caterham 7 coming up in part 2 of Used Car Heaven, and that's in a couple of minutes' time. Welcome back to part 2 of Used Car Heaven. On this week's programme, we're looking to find a new track day car for Mark Hoskin. So far he's driven the MKGT and the Ariel Atom. Soon he'll be going out in this Caterham 7. Also coming up, Brad will have more insider tips at the trading post. But what other track day cars are there for Mark to try out? Well, this week's alternative car on Used Car Heaven to compare against the Ariel Atom, the MK and the Caterham is this. It's from Westfield. It's called the XDR2. It stands for Extreme. Now, this Westfield XDR2 was developed primarily for the track day market. Such has been the explosion in people these days wanting to take their own cars to the track and have a bit of fun and really see what they can do with them. And that's why Westfield spent a year developing the XDR2. If you're wondering what XDR2 stands for, it's Extreme Track and Road Car. Number 2, for some strange reason which even they don't know. But this car is a whole heap of fun. Now, Westfield will basically build you an XDR2 to whatever your requirements. It's not a particularly cheap car. Westfield say that it's aimed at people who already might have a Porsche or BMW in the garage and are absolutely committed to using track days, and most importantly, they've got a fair amount of money. So if you're sat there right now thinking, what is one of these going to cost me? Well, if you want to build it yourself, it's going to cost you at least £12,500, and that excludes the engine. If you want one ready built from Westfield, you're looking at £24,000 upwards. A full race spec car could cost you nearly £40,000. Well, here are the ball facts about the Westfield XDR2. It's got a Suzuki 1300cc motorbike engine behind you. Produces 170 brake horsepower. You've got a 6-speed sequential gearbox. 1 down, 5 back. You just slam it right the way through the gears. The car only weighs 460 kilograms. So as you can imagine, it's one seriously quick car. And you can just about get the tail to step out, but it's very, very secure going around the bends. It's equivalent to a brake horsepower per tonne of about 370. Most cars couldn't get anywhere near that these days. Now, you might have gathered that the team haven't managed to prize me out of this car so far today because it's such a real hoot. For £12,500, you can build the XDR2 yourself and maintain it. It certainly offers serious competition to the likes of the Ariel Atom and the Caterham. And once you're driving it, the adrenaline starts pumping, you start having fun. And the last time I had as much fun as I've had today, a sexy nurse pampering to my every need was involved somewhere.
The car itself is very similar in format and looks, but the technology has changed dramatically. Under the skin, this has got modern technology, modern engines, modern suspension and handling. It's probably the leading car for any track day that anyone could want. We've recently had a 0 to 100 and back to 0 test, and we are reputed now to be the world's fastest production car, even beating the McLaren F1. We went 0 to 100, back to 0 in 10.4 seconds.
Well, Mark, the third and final car that you're getting a chance to drive today is this, the Caterham 7. What do you think of it? You've had a real good blast around in it. Do you like it?
I've enjoyed driving it, and it's a challenging car to drive, and I think you could learn a lot from driving it. Not too sure how well it compares to the sort of style of driving of a race car. There's a lot of understeer in a car like this, which is a lot different to what I'm used to. And
I think compared to the other cars, for me, just as a passenger, it feels a lot softer.
Yes.
Dare I say, an almost comfortable car to drive around in, which might not be the best thing for what you're looking for.
I think if you were just using it as a track day car, and you weren't trying to gain something to compare it to like a race car, it certainly have its uses and be good for that. It's definitely good fun to drive, and you learn a lot about driving with a car like this.
Do you find it not as sharp as the other two that you've driven so far?
No, it definitely doesn't handle the same, although it just takes a different driving style, which isn't something you want to adopt when you're trying to practice a style of driving. I'd have to change the style of driving, which defeats the object of it for me. However, it is good fun to drive, without a doubt, and it's quick, it's fast. I don't think you would mind so much spending that kind of money on a car like this, because you are, and it feels like you're getting a lot more of a car. It's not just a frame and a few wheels and an engine. There's a lot more to it. We've got a windscreen, which is nice.
Yeah. Well, Mark, the third and final car has been this, the Caterham Superlight 7. What do you think of this? I mean, you weren't too sure about it initially. Have your view changed on it, really?
I like the car. It's a really nice car. It feels like it's well built, and I'll be able to trust the car and rely on it. I'll be able to drive it to the circuit, drive it around the circuit, have some fun. It's a lot different to my race car, though.
It is. I mean, to me, it just feels a very comfortable car, which makes me think that it might not be suited to a race circuit.
I think it would be, but in a different style of things, really. It would be fun to drive, without a doubt, but I'd be learning different things.
Yeah. Well, don't give us your final decision just yet, because before that, we need to head off to the trading post. Here's Brad.
One thing you have to check when you're buying a road-going track car is obviously the condition. Service history is not that important. It is important, but it's not as important as the actual documentation to the modifications that have been done on the car. Always check the documentation and make sure it matches what's been modified on the car. When you're buying something like this, it's always better to be buying off a specialist as well. Always check for crash damage on the vehicle, bad fitting panels, scuffs to the bodywork, anything that makes you feel a bit suspect. Always check it out. The modifications on this vehicle have been very extensive. Lowered springs, stiffened suspension, and the greater horsepower. One thing you'll find on track cars is you tend to get a lot more wear on one side or the other because of the way the
people actually race round the tracks. Don't let that put you off. Just obviously check for the condition of the tyres, the wheels, check the steering, and it's always good advice to drive one of these cars before you actually get carried away and purchase it. Next week I'll be back and I'll be talking about another used car deal.
Well, Mark, it's decision time. You've had a good day hopefully here with us today, driving all the cars on this airstrip. Hope you've enjoyed the day first of all.
Thanks very much. Yeah, it was great fun.
Now we'd like to do it in reverse order. Give us your number 3 car.
Number 3 is the Caterham.
The Caterham 7.
All 3 cars were brilliant. They're all good, fast, grippy track day cars. Unfortunately, this is the furthest away from the kind of car that I need.
Looking for, yeah. And I suppose it's looking a bit outdated now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, but it was a comfortable car. You could drive to the track in this one.
So the Caterham 7 has to go, I'm afraid. So what are you putting at number 2 in the list?
Number 2 is the Ariel.
Looks great, doesn't it?
I love it. I want this car.
You really want it, don't you?
I just can't have it because, again, it's not similar enough to what I want.
It's not similar to your racing car, basically.
That's right, yeah,
is it?
yeah.
It's a shame.
It handled well, it was fast, it looked brilliant. I think I'll have it as a town car instead.
So we have to say goodbye to the Ariel Atom, which means the number 1 car that you're going for is the MKGT. Now, as we were saying before, this is a prototype. Still got a few things to iron out in it, but I mean, look at it, it's a race car out and out, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it's fast, it's grippy, and it's very similar to the race car. It's not exactly the same, but someone can sit next to me and have lots of fun in that car.
Absolutely. I think you made a good choice there. I enjoyed driving that, the quick blast line in that. Thanks for your time today, Mark.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed it. That's it for this week's Used Car Heaven. Join us again at the same time next week.